We have taped several shows regarding the importance of your work that you do in Human Life International, the importance of understanding the evils of abortion, but then the root of that evil, artificial birth control. And, you know, I'd like to talk about something called abortifacients and something called chemical abortions. Now, I've heard those terms before in our, you know, just in the paper or, you know, reading various things. But could you explain to our viewers, you know, what is a chemical abortion and what is an abortifacient? Because, you know, a lot of times we think of abortion as, oh yeah, it's a choice that a woman makes. You know, she finds out she's pregnant. She goes to the abortion mill if that's what she decides to do, unfortunately, because it's legal. And then, you know, they do tests and then they perform this procedure and then she leaves and the baby is no longer inside of her, and she made that decision. And a lot of times people who are pro-life may say, well, you know, that woman made that decision and it was a wrong decision and it should be illegal and I would never make that decision. But maybe someone who's very pro-life, a couple who's very pro-life, who votes for pro-life candidates, who believes that it should be illegal, would want Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court who would protect life in the womb, either constitutionally or believing being a constructionist, to believe that the Constitution should be interpreted literally. So whatever the case may be, they may be a couple that's pro-life, but it's very possible that an abortion happened in a relationship that they may have had either before they were married or after they were married, and without them even knowing it. How could that have happened?
This is how insidious chemical abortion is, that oftentimes it happens when couples don't even know it. Let me distinguish it from what you mentioned is surgical abortion. Okay, that's the you know, where an intervention is made into the body of the woman from the outside, and the baby is taken out violently to kill that child. Most people don't know that there are 1.3 million abortions here in the United States every single year, and those are only the ones that have been able to be counted. You know, a lot of times abortionists are not even required to report their surgical abortions. Even fewer people know that there are 55 million surgical abortions in the world every single year. Now think of that, 55 million. That's the population of California and Florida combined. Okay, every single year in the world we kill that many babies by surgical abortion. The number of chemical abortions makes all this other stuff, you know, look like child's play, because there are at least 10 times or 11 or 12 times as many chemical abortions by chemical means in the world, and oftentimes women don't even know that they're aborting. What basically it is the taking of birth control pills, which are hormones. And the birth control pills have 3 functions in the body of the woman. The first function of the birth control pill is to thicken the mucus of the cervix, which provides a barrier to the entrance of the sperm into the uterus. Okay, so that's it really is a contraceptive function. If the sperm gets through and travels up the fallopian tube and fertilizes an egg. Or let me go back one step. If the sperm does get through, but the chemical works in the body of the woman to suppress the ovulation of the woman, okay, that's the anti-ovulatory function of the birth control pill. All right, so the sperm never finds an egg, doesn't create a conceived child. All right, but sometimes that function doesn't work either, and there is an egg and there is a sperm that gets through, and they form a conceived child in the fallopian tube. That child travels down the fallopian tube, tries to implant into the uterus of the woman, like it should. And
meaning that when the egg is fertilized by the sperm, a soul is infused at that moment. God creates life, and that is a human member, that is a member of the human family.
That's right, that's right. That's why I like the term conceived child, because even though we're only talking about a fertilized egg, basically one cell, then divides into 2 and 4 and 8, that is a human being. Okay, we know that scientifically because it has human DNA, which is distinct from the DNA of the mother and the father. Okay, so we can talk about this from science, or we can talk about it, as you put it, in religious terms and say this is a unique human being because it has a soul. Okay, at that moment of fertilization, or what we call also the moment of conception, you know, God infuses a soul into that human matter, and it becomes a human being. So anything that you would do to that conceived child after that point is an injustice to that human person, even though that person is tiny, just a couple cells. You know, you remember that Dr. Seuss book of Horton Hears a Who, and Horton hears these little tiny voices coming out of a thistle, and he says, people are people no matter how small. And a human being is a human being no matter how small, even if it's just a couple of cells. Okay, and then that third function of the birth control pill prohibits that conceived child from actually implanting in the wall of the uterus, and it expels the child, and that's what we call a chemical abortion. And now that can happen when a woman doesn't even know it's happening inside of her. You know, she knows she took the pill, but she doesn't know if the pill is in her body is going to work to stop the sperm, or if it's going to work to suppress the ovulation, or if it's going to work to expel that conceived child from her uterus. She doesn't know that. So even women who take the pill with the best of intentions it can be participating in the abortion holocaust, because the chemicals that they're taking inside of them are stopping those children from coming to birth. You know, and that's really frightening. Let me give you just a quick idea about what the birth control pill does to the uterus of the woman. Okay, most women don't know this either. But when a woman is not taking these kinds of hormones, inside of her uterus is the endometrium, and it's a lush, thick nest into which that fertilized egg is supposed to implant. Okay, it's got nutrients. It's got, you know, it roots itself right there because it's held together by that forest, you know, of healthy things inside the uterus. When a woman takes a birth control pill, the function of the chemicals is to deforest that uterus. In other words, instead of being a forest, it ends up looking like a desert. It doesn't have anything to grab onto. There's no nest into which that fertilized egg can implant, and therefore, when all that interior lining of the uterus is sloughed off, the unborn child goes with it, you know, in a chemical abortion. So it's not a bloody intervention like a surgical abortion would be, but nonetheless, it's of the same moral character as a regular surgical abortion.